Long story short, recent breakup, very distraught, cried out for help, felt abandoned by everyone, and finally fell asleep. Around 3:30 in the morning, I wake up to go to the bathroom and realize I'm completely paralyzed. I can't move except turn my head from side to side. I can't speak. I feel like I'm sinking deeper into the bed. After watching the clock for about 30 minutes, I decided to try again and can't get up. I'm scared because I have no control over my body. My mind is clear though. I'm not dreaming. I'm wide awake. Next thing I remember is a man in a black suit. His face is a black void. He's standing on the side of my bed. I know I would be terrified, but I'm not. Strangely, everything about him was pleasing. Creepy, but pleasing. He didn't speak, but somehow I knew he wanted me to go with him, to take his hand and go with him. That's when I looked away. At the foot of my bed are 3 monks. No faces, just brown robes. Every time I tried to get up to go with this man, it felt as if the monks were pushing me back down. This went on for about an hour. I just kept trying to get up and go with him, and the monks kept pushing me back down. Eventually, I quit looking at the man. I refused to look at him. When I finally got the courage to turn and check the time, the man was gone. I looked at the foot of my bed, and the monks were gone. Only then was I able to get up. A couple of years later, I had a near-death experience. Has anyone seen a man in a black suit, or monks, all without faces? Back in May, I moved into an upstairs apartment. At first I experienced nothing out of the ordinary. Then I met my downstairs neighbors, and that was when things started to get very strange. The first thing that I noticed was being so tired after I got home from work that I literally would come home and fall into a deep sleep. The first time that happened, I had someone stole money from me. At the same time my neighbor's electric was about to be off. The amount of the bill was $120, which is the exact same amount that was stolen from me. Next, things went from very strange to downright creepy, as in like a haunting. Not things moving around as much as pictures being drawn on my floors and walls. This individual had me believing that he was Satan and that he was my guardian angel from the beginning of time. I found that very hard to believe. I began communicating with what appeared to be a spirit. I asked him questions and he would grab my head and shake it yes or nod it very lightly. I moved out last month, but my neighbors are still with me. Now, I live with my friend, more than 20 minutes away. There's a symbol of Satan on their flat screen TV. I can grab this entity in my hands and stab it to the wood floor. Sounds incredible, huh? I can see him in the air, where he is floating around. And the house is warm, and it's also distorted like when you look at a barbecue grill. My question is, how do I make him go away? Is there a way to block his energy from me? Any advice would be welcome. I googled projecting yourself from your body. That is how I found out about astral projection. I've been having these bizarre, terrifying experiences on and off for almost 20 years, but most frequently in the past 5 years or so. This week it has happened to me 3 times, and although it never occurred to me before to do any research on the internet, my sister suggested it, and the first link I looked at brought me here, to another woman's story. I was astonished to find that her experience was almost identical to my own, and now I'm bursting with curiosity about it. Maybe someone out there will read this and will be able to give me some sort of explanation. It always happens when I'm in bed, either just as I'm drifting into the sleep state, or later at night when something awakens me and I begin to fall back asleep. I always think that I am awake when it begins, but now I'm not so sure. I feel like I'm awake, feel like I'm in my body, and then suddenly I am not in control. It didn't used to happen this way, but for the past few months, anytime it happens, it begins with a ringing in my ears that rapidly grows louder. The ringing is so unpleasant. It's like a super high-pitched monotone. This is accompanied by a sudden sensation of floating or weightlessness. The floating sensation is actually nice. It feels free, and sometimes I get the feeling that I just need to let go and let it happen. But I don't ever seem to be able to do it because it quickly becomes very scary. Always with these episodes, I have the sensation that something or someone is there and taking control of me. Perhaps that's just my mind's interpretation. I don't really believe in malevolent entities, but it's a powerful sensation. The floating feeling feels like something is taking me away. I don't know how else to explain it. Taking me away or trapping me, and immediately I have an overpowering urge to fight it. That's where the paralysis part comes in. I get terrified at this point because I feel myself as floating, and sometimes I actually do move around. I'll be carried off of my bed or through a wall into another room, and the whole time I'm struggling against it. I feel like I'm under 100 feet of water, or like I have chains around me. I try to move my arms and legs, and I can't, or if I manage to do so, it's with an incredible lethargy, and it's so slow, so feeble, that it's useless. Sometimes I try to shout or scream, and I can't make any sound come out. Other times, I've literally tried to throw my body around, so that doesn't really work either. Generally, I struggle for some period of time, and then suddenly I'm opening my eyes for real, and in my bed, right where I started, and I'm always shocked to find that I haven't moved and the world hasn't ended. This has happened to me so many times now that I can recognize it when it happens. Even as it is happening, I'm telling myself that it's not real, and I just need to wake up, even though I feel like I'm fully awake. This is definitely not a dream, and not the normal dream state. It feels 100% real and physical, and I remember every episode so vividly, all the way back to the first one when I was 17 years old. I don't know what to make of it. I was stunned when I read the other woman's account. It is several years old at this point, and saw that she described these exact same sensations. Many people had comments about being an out-of-body experience or the beginnings of one, and this is something that had never occurred to me before, but I suppose it all makes sense now. My questions are, why does something that I would think would be a fascinating experience feel so negative and terrifying? As I've said, some part of me always does have this urge to let go and not struggle, and tells me that everything really is okay, and I should just go with it. But every time I try, I just feel like there is something, or this someone, a very negative something, trying to do something to me, and I always end up fighting against it. I know I'm probably opening a big can of worms by putting this out here and asking for opinions, but my curiosity now, after reading some other people's experiences, is too strong to resist. Can anyone give me any idea what's going on? And if this really is me attempting to have an OBE, why does it feel so terrible? And how can I let go and have a positive experience? Thank you so much for reading. About a week and a half ago, I was sleeping next to my boyfriend, and about 4:30 a.m., I woke up to use the bathroom and play a little bit of my RPG game on my iPhone. When I was done, I turned off the lights and slept on my stomach. I held my boyfriend with my left arm. I couldn't sleep. My eyes opened in the dark, even though they were shut. At this point, I leaned up, still on my tummy, and looked at the clock. 5:08 a.m. I looked at my boyfriend, and then he was gone. At this point, I knew exactly what was happening. I was astral projecting. I knew I astraled at this point, but I didn't want to deal with this. I've always astraled by accident, so I slept back down on my stomach. At this point, I felt continuous tugging, and I turned to my right. We slept on the floor, and I'm on the wall side. A sparkly, glittery, blue human with arms, heads, legs was pulling me. It was even on its knees on my legs. I was scared. I said, "Oh my God, please, you're ruining my sleep. Stop." My eyes shift from reality to spirit realm. Finally, I got back. I told my boyfriend. It was like 5:30 a.m. Anyways, I googled someone in the psychic experience site and said, imagine a human glass vase filled with glitter and blue static people. So, I was like shocked. I'm not alone. It was baby blue, white, little pink, lavender, sparkly as hell. Thing is, no one died around me, so I didn't even know what it was or what it wanted. I joined this site to see if any more people can give me answers of what these spirits are. Thank you. For as long as I can recall, music has been a big aspect in my life as far as my emotional state. It has this way of invoking emotion in a way quite like nothing else can compare to. One thing I always wanted to learn was the piano, which up until recently, I haven't been able to play as well as I wanted to. I guess it was this aspect of how much you want something versus how much you imagine it that led me to the current situation. I'd often imagine myself playing some musical instrument while listening to some song in my memory that eventually and accidentally start to project itself to the point that I can hear it in the friggin' sky. As much as I try to focus on somehow keeping it in my own mind, it just so happens to manifest outward into the real world. Now, I apologize if anyone has heard music in this sense, as it may be my fault and I'm still working on containing said abilities. It's to the point now where anything I imagine sometimes projects outward, which I'm not sure if it's normal or not. One of my favorite things to imagine or project are thought experiments involving my favorite topic, astrophysics. I can picture exactly how the universe works and have written a formula on how time itself theoretically works, which solves Einstein's theory of relativity. It's an ongoing thing which I've developed over time, with the first part of it, as I recall, happening in the 6th grade. I was explaining to my teacher that you could go from point A to point B, being any distance apart, and that the only thing that was a factor was velocity. He said that there was a problem. You'd break every bone in your body under acceleration, and said he'd love to read a book about it someday. Time volume theory, basically time itself, is a whole separate thing when spoken in relation to the universe. Time, from my perspective, is more of a volume than a numerical scale which moves one way. Einstein's theory needed space-time to be infinite, but due to the tools he had available, was unable to prove it definitively. Mine proposed that time is not infinite, as it has to have a start and an end. Otherwise, there's no way to tell how much time has elapsed. Time which is finite, over the universe which is infinite, by space which is just a container, equals relativity of 3 parts, your observational time span, over time variables which are mass density, mass velocity, and gravitational field, over an observed object's time span. A big aspect of today's current astrophysic view on the cosmos says that space is expanding, which doesn't take a few things into account, primarily distance measured using redshift techniques. It measures via the star's luminosity, but in a way that proposes light travels in a straight line. When you factor in that line has to go through dark matter and the warping of space around mass, that its trajectory path is curved, it would cancel out the aspect of space expanding, and most likely would show that space is static with dynamic objects that move within its environment. A lot of what I learned over the years as a result of my passion for astrophysics came from Isaac Asimov books, encyclopedias, and documentaries such as The Universe on History Channel. The rest has come from pure thought experiments in my head where I can imagine a set of conditions within a specific environment and simply imagine the outcome of the situation due to my scientific, electrical, and mechanical aptitudes. A few years back, when I first started to learn about my psychic ability, the first thing I did was explore deeper into the realm of my imagination, which led me to some amazing discoveries, in addition to many theories on how life in the universe worked. In theory, of course. I definitely look forward to future experiences as I hone my abilities and push myself to explore new horizons, with the only limitation being those I impose on myself. Thanks for reading. I found myself at church as every week. I hadn't slept at all the night before, but all in all, I felt fine walking in and sitting down. A few minutes pass. I drink my coffee and I wait for the music to start. The band begins playing and I relax into my chair a bit, with this strange feeling starting to overwhelm me. The best way I can describe it is that I was distancing from everything and everyone around me, and there was this extreme pain growing centered in between my eyebrows, along with this extreme warmth. I felt shaky and weak, and this pull was growing. I knew that I could resist it if I wanted to, but I chose not to, for the sake of seeing what would happen. It was almost as if I was being pulled to my left and forward, not physically, but mentally. The pain in between my eyebrows split and started to move to slightly above my temples on each side of my head. As the mental pull got stronger, the pain from my temples began to grow. Everything around me felt far off. I was watching from a third-person perspective as I stood over my body, which was still lounging in the chair. The area around me and my body was an expanse of gray, and I could see the silhouettes of the people who were sitting beside me off in the horizon. I was alone in this expanse of gray, floating beside my physical body, just watching myself. I watched and felt horns start to tear out of my physical body's skin. The pain was intense and overwhelming throughout this entire process. The horns continued to slowly grow. As I watched solemnly, an orb appeared about 6 feet in front of my physical body. The orb itself was translucent with a slight golden sheen, but it held in it a liquid of yellow and white that I could only describe as liquid light. The orb slowly floated over to me until it was about 3 feet above my physical body. It floated there for a moment before the liquid inside the orb was released to flow down into my face. As soon as the liquid came in contact with the horns growing on my head, the horns melted as if they were made of metal. The liquid light relinquished the pain I'd been experiencing as soon as it touched my face. The metal that used to be my horns fused with the liquid light, and they slowly moved down my back together and pooling as one at my shoulder blades. Extreme warmth followed by excruciating pain as the metal liquid launched off my back, forming jagged metal bones like those of bird wings. I felt hurt but confused and also enlightened at the same time. I slowly felt myself drifting back into my body, and I felt physically ill and weak. I felt like I just went 3 rounds in a ring with a professional boxer. I haven't really ever been a religious person before. This was my 3rd time going to church, and I don't know what to take from this. I know this last bit isn't astral projected related, but I feel it is relevant to the story. The day after this happened, I was meditating, and I had this image of a masculine figure with the metal wing bones I had. I knew he was me, but he looked hurt. He was sitting up, and there was dirt all over the metal bones. Then there was a flicker of blue light, and there were these tendrils of light extending down from the bones where feathers would have been on normal wings. The tendrils of light slowly undulated, as if they were seaweed floating underwater. Thank you for reading. Last night I had a very vivid, multi-sensory lucid dream. After a few minutes the visitor left. They dematerialized or whooshed away off my right-hand side. With it came a sound I've heard before. It was a very quick but drawn-out note or chord that seemed to become louder before disappearing. Previously, I've had experiences when meditating of a person's light body entering through the crown of my head with a similar but lower and uncomfortable noise until they are in and around me. They then proceeded to communicate through hand signals and images and gestures they made with my body. When they left, there was a similar sound, but much louder, and I felt the being pulling away. It is almost as if a whole person is sucked into a vortex like manna down a plug hole. Once the last of the form disappears, the noise ceases. Last night, when the visitor appeared, I said yes to it, in that I had a conversation with the person. We were face to face. It was therefore unlike the full body takeover described above. It was a two-way conversation, and I could feel their physical body too. Then they left with a whoosh. Was I receiving an astral visitation from someone projecting directly to me? Does this low, quick, Pulling noise sound familiar to anyone? If so, is this typical when being visited by someone performing astral projection? Thank you in advance for your input, advice, and guidance. I see these visitations. They're not infrequent, but this is the most recent as benign. I've no fear associated with them. I would just like to know what type of experience this is and whether the sound is somehow characteristic. Hey guys, Phantom here. These stories were pretty cool actually. This is the first time I've ever done astral projection stories, and I know this is kind of like, old school stuff that nobody ever does, but I wanted to do it because, that's what I think is cool. So leave a like, comment, and subscribe. These comments that you guys send me always make me feel a little less lonely in this world because with 1 million people in my pants, we can, okay, never mind. Not going there. You know what? I'll tell you guys a story about this one time I astral projected. So I was too lazy to get up off my ass. I was in bed and I really needed to go to the bathroom. So I just astral projected and launched myself into the toilet where I could sit my pretty little butt. Of course, that was another joke, but really, go ahead and comment in the section below and really tell me how you feel about these particular stories. I'm open to any criticisms, any comments that you guys have, any adoration or vindication of my stupidity. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, guys, I'll see you later in the next video, and don't forget to share too, because, sharing is caring, like I always say. Love you guys. Good night, good morning, and I'll see you in the next video, which I just said, so I'm not going to repeat myself, but I did anyway. I'm not going to edit this out. I suck at outros, I really do. Blah.